Hi, everybody. Welcome to our episode of the Oncology Data Advisor podcast with our latest AI technology episode. Today, we're joined by Kristin Maloney, as part of Mendel, which is an AI platform designed to mimic physician-level cognitive abilities. Kristin is a certified oncology nurse and clinical informaticist with over 15 years of experience in terms of bedside nursing, clinical research, and also informatics. Thanks so much for joining today, Kristin.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about, what inspired Mendel and the company's vision.
Yeah. So Mendel was co-founded in 2017 by an AI scientist and a physician who shared this vision of creating a Jarvis for medicine. And they really wanted to go beyond just being another AI company making these kind of grand claims without substance. So to achieve this, Mendel spent several years focused on rigorous R&D before launching our technology in 2020. And today, Mendel is one of the most funded clinical AI startups with a team of over 100 professionals now, blue chip investors, and several industry leading clients. And a core philosophy that we've taken at Mendel is that clinical AI isn't just any AI. And so while generative AI, particularly large language models, have transformed many fields very rapidly in the recent couple years, there are specific challenges in healthcare. So LLMs often struggle with the longitudinal reasoning, and they can lack the deep domain understanding needed because they just don't inherently know medicine. And actually, they entirely lack built-in logical reasoning and grounding mechanisms, which are critical for using AI on clinical data. So Mendel addresses these gaps with what we launched as our Hypercube platform, which combines LLMs with a proprietary clinical hypergraph, creating what we call a neuro-symbolic AI system. And by anchoring our eye in that medical knowledge through these knowledge graphs, we can process complex, multi source clinical data at scale, allowing us to unlock actionable insights from clinical data in a novel way. So essentially, that's what the company has set out to do.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And as you mentioned, I mean, healthcare, non-healthcare, obviously very different settings for applying AI. And I think as a clinician myself, and you with your experience clinically, I think one of the biggest things we struggle with clinically in terms of using AI is unstructured data. So you as a clinical informatics lead for Mendel, how do you kind of think about this, and how does like Mendel try to solve this?
Yeah, so it's true. The unstructured EMR data, such as the physician notes and pathology reports, et cetera, pose significant challenges for the traditional NLP tools. And, those approaches often miss nuanced context due to, first of all, the lack of standardization across documents, authors, and different EMR systems, as well as other data sources. And the gold standard approach has been this manual human-based abstraction method, which unfortunately is slow and can be error prone, is resource intensive, and there's a huge lag time there. So it doesn't allow us to get to any closer to real-time insights from the unstructured data. So our system addresses these gaps in several ways. So we consolidate the structured and unstructured data into a single comprehensive record for analysis. And we use optical character recognition, OCR, and de-identification technology to pre-process the documents. We also use named entity recognition, NLP, and machine learning to interpret the text. And then last but not least, the real differentiator, what I've kind of started to allude to, is this clinical reasoning engine, which holistically analyzes the data across the entire record, not just at the document level. And so this approach enables us to have like a deeper, more connected understanding of that longitudinal journey, unlike many other NLP technologies that are usually limited to a document level reasoning.
Got it. And just to kind of build upon the stuff you're saying about sort of the improved reasoning, how do you kind of use the Hypercube to improve the processing time of sort of, processing these unstructured documents in the EMR, while also saving the cost per query for like compared to traditional NLP?
Yeah, it's a great question because we're talking about volumes of data. So the traditional systems reindex data at every query runtime, which is slow and resource intensive. And Mendel indexes the data once, enabling instant querying through our hypergraph technology. And I'll kind of unpack that a little bit more as we go. And then our semantically enabled system uses a query language that we built actually called Eloquent, which simplifies complex SQL-like queries. So, for example, instead of searching ICD-10 or SNOMED CT code ranges, an analyst could actually just type something like lung cancer. And Eloquent references our hypergraph to account for all of the synonyms and associated vocabularies and codes automatically. So this also drastically reduces the query complexity and the runtime, which is how we lower the cost.
Got it. And then kind of shifting gears towards oncology, one thing that we really struggle with in this field is enrolling patients in a clinical trial. A lot of trials fail to meet the recruitment targets. Many trials even fail to recruit a single patient. Some cancers, you wait for a trial until you're sort of third, fourth line and kind of add options for standard of care. And some cancers that are very, aggressive, maybe you think about a clinical trial from the beginning. So how can you use, Mendel and some of the tools like the Hypercube cohort to kind of improve accrual and recruitment for trials?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this one is certainly, close to my heart, having worked as a phase one clinical research nurse before and really experienced the challenges with timing and getting the right patients and getting patients access to the right trial at the right point in their care. It's a huge challenge. I think there's still a lot from an industry standard level that we want to do to improve this, right? So, Hypercube cohorts is one of the features in our platform. It enables a low or no code cohort creation. So, this can be used for clinical trials, it can be used for registries, retrospective studies, other research projects. So, there's actually a wide range of applications of creating cohorts, and clinical trial accrual is one of them. Earlier this year, we published an automatic cohort retrieval study, which demonstrated our system's superior speed and accuracy and scalability for cohort retrieval compared to models like BERT and GPT-4 with significantly fewer hallucinations. So, putting that into the clinical trial recruitment workflow, cohorts could be used, for example, when you might need to rapidly find a patient to pre-screen to backflow slot where maybe you had a patient screen fail, or you just might need better tools to enable your research team to do more proactive pre-screening to help you find patients, maybe like for those slower enrolling studies like you mentioned. um, so this is a fast and accurate way to find patients, and from the sponsor's standpoint as well, the solution can help them and their sites make more accurate data-driven decisions about feasibility for their trials. So using that full IE criteria on that patient population without getting a ton of false positives, they can make better projections and plan better for the feasibility of their study and understand how many sites do I need to open and how many patients is each of these sites going to be able to put on this particular study and at what pace.
Got it. No, thanks for sharing all that. And then in terms of also oncology as well, what should oncologists know about Mendel AI's sort of ontology and reasoning system?
Yeah, this is really fascinating, and coming from the clinical world and coming into AI, it's a different landscape and a different language. So let me kind of unpack it a little bit more with the reasoning system and the ontology for an oncologist. So as I explained earlier a little bit, Mendel's hypercube mimics how an oncologist reasons. So our custom built ontology that Mendel's built out is focused on the oncology domain, and it organizes clinical concepts hierarchically, integrating all these vocabularies that I had mentioned before, like ARC, SNORM, CPT, ICD-10, SNOMED, and capturing all the synonyms and abbreviations. And then what we've done is we've also broken down the clinical concepts in medicine the way you would think about a periodic table of elements. So, for example, with non-small cell lung cancer, it's a neoplasm residing in the lung of a person's body. So you have like a tumor, a body site, and then this also carries a predefined group of histologic subtypes. So, adenocarcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, large cell, et cetera. So that allows us to kind of understand these clinical concepts the way a clinician would when we read something like non-small cell lung cancer in a record. And then our system also boosts the confidence of clinical facts when corroborating evidence is found. So if a record shows a wedge resection of the left lower lobe and we don't know anything else. But then we see and in that note, and then we see something else that says there's an ICD-10 code in the record for malignant neoplasm of the lung. These systems can connect these facts together and boost our confidence that both are true and kind of validate the accuracy, which helps us to solve for conflicts and errors in a record, which are actually not uncommon. And so then we do this kind of corroboration across dozens to hundreds of clinical facts in the record before producing the final output. Um, and then the last thing I think I'll say about just the key features of the ontology and the reasoning system is we have this equivalency reasoning. And so, for instance, our AI knows that triple negative breast cancer implies negative results for HER2, ER, PR biomarker tests. That all seems very obvious to a clinician, but an AI doesn't necessarily inherently know those things. And those are things that we've basically built out for our AI to understand and use. So, that interconnected understanding in the AI allows us to generate more coherent and actionable insights kind of grounded in that clinical context.
Got it. Yeah, I definitely agreed. Ontology is very important for oncology.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, yeah. So a couple other quick questions. How do you kind of think about clinically responsible AI and you're making sure it's used ethically, especially with patient care?
Yeah. Yeah. So at Mendel, we believe that clinically responsible AI must avoid hallucinations, especially when working with this very sensitive clinical data and the impacts that it could have or mistakes in AI could have on a patient. So we achieve that by grounding the AI in medical knowledge through the reasoning system and ensuring our outputs are both accurate but also explainable. So as far as explainability goes, this is another thing that I think Mendel has done a really good job at from the outset. So Mendel's platform has been designed from the beginning to deliver a fully explainable AI. So it links exactly where the AI got the clinical facts from in each patient record. And so this is kind of another aspect of how we think about clinically responsible AI is, essentially showing our work and making it transparent and easy to validate by a human end user before they use it. And then, and I think this is an interesting discussion when we think about this as well, because we're trying to find ways to evaluate if AI is safe and ready for use in clinical care settings. And I think it's an interesting discussion because we tend to want to benchmark the performance of an AI tool or system to human performance. And we ourselves at Mendel have done that. We've tried to evaluate our AI quality against our own, human experts. And what we have to recognize is that humans are imperfect too, and they can make mistakes and experience fatigue for sure. And there are things that they can only do at a fraction of the pace of an AI technology. So on the other hand, the AI performs best when it comes to clinical reasoning, when it can read the entire record as opposed to maybe a single note, when it can just ingest all of the information and make sense of it holistically. And of course, it does this very quickly compared to a human trying to read the entire record. So I think the goal here isn't to replace situations where clinical judgment should be used, but to enhance the accuracy and the productivity of clinical experts working with patients or working with patient data.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. And then can you tell us about maybe recent partnership or a study that you all have worked on?
Yeah, so I mentioned the automatic cohort retrieval paper already. So that's one of the key studies. But then also before that, we published in 2023, we published a study that demonstrated how coupling symbolic reasoning with language modeling improves the AI's understanding of the unstructured clinical text. So our findings in that research showed that the hybrid approach significantly enhanced the extraction of medical variables. So we basically found more information compared to the LLMs alone. And this kind of reinforced the value of combining these methods when talking about building clinical AI. That was a pretty foundational and critical research finding for us to have to kind of confirm the hypothesis that Mendel started out with at our outset.
Got it. And then final question, obviously we're seeing AI being used for so many things. Just for you personally, what are some of the really cool use cases you're seeing and in terms of applying AI?
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting things coming up. So one of the things that we are going to be doing on a continuous basis, we have an ongoing scientific collaboration with the academic partners that we have at the University of Pennsylvania and the Hack Lab, and it's been great working with them. So what they're doing is they've been doing research with our AI. So they conducted an initial study to streamline clinical data abstraction in a cohort of patients with either non-small cell lung cancer or colorectal cancer. And the results were presented at ASCO 2024 in an oral abstract session. And they demonstrated that the AI achieved non-inferior accuracy compared to humans while significantly improving speed. So there's a manuscript, detailing these findings that's, I think, expected to be submitted pretty soon by the team at UPenn. And so building on that success, they are now planning a follow-up study with Mendel to explore how AI extracted data can be leveraged for trial matching. So this ongoing collaboration not only allows us to validate our technology, but it also highlights kind of the practical value in advancing both abstraction workflows, which I've talked a lot about, as well as clinical trial matching. And then this past year, it's really shown how Hypercube can revolutionize this chart abstraction process. So it's not just about the speed and scale, but it's also just about how comprehensive and connected the data become when you consolidate those facts across the record. So one of the features in Hypercube that we use to do this is called chart review, and it allows the user to kind of go in and search the comprehensive record. We have a semantically enabled search system, which is incredibly powerful if you don't know what you're looking for. So you open a patient's record, you don't know anything about that patient. You're trying to understand what their journey is. You might not know what keywords you want to search for. So you want to kind of start broad and go more narrow. So for example, with a melanoma patient, you might want to just search immune checkpoint inhibitors as a starting point to see like what did this patient maybe get? Or you might just want to search biomarkers or BRAF to start to understand what the patient's biomarker status was, and then start to kind of build on understanding their story from there. So that's a powerful tool. And then when you go to that search result, we actually link the two together. So as I mentioned before, you can kind of seamlessly move between the AI outputs and the patient record to create this workflow that is incredibly powerful for validating the AI results, as well as enhancing data quality, and scaling abstraction efforts in a way that just wasn't possible before. So our customers are using this tool to rapidly generate high quality real world data, conduct retrospective cohort studies with far less manual effort. And we also envision this will be powerful as a tool for streamlining processes in the future, like medical billing and coding and prior authorization. And then also, as I've mentioned before, it does have incredible potential for finding and then also doing some of the pre-screening activities to identify patients for trials. So I think what's exciting about this tooling and supercharging these workflows is this kind of transforms the way that we can think about cancer research. So a recent example that kind of stood out to me was that there was a research team in an academic center that's working on this retrospective study. And in the study design, they opted from a data collection standpoint to just only abstract the first 3 doses of chemotherapy for a large cohort of patients. But rather than abstracting, all cancer-directed therapy, like limiting that scope was there because they want to account for the scale of what they can do as a team, as a research team, and they don't have forever to focus on abstraction. They've got to get to data analysis. So we see this all the time, right? With a study focused on what could be achievable within the confines of a human-only chart review workflow. So with Hypercube, Mendel's system extracts all the medications, whether they're cancer related or otherwise, automatically. So this saves significant time and effort. And this kind of approach isn't just, powerful, in theory. I mean, I think it can really change how we think about study design and data collection, and even as well, just routine interactions with clinical records when we have this kind of power with the AI.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for answering all the questions and for our conversation today. All the best with Mendel, and have a good rest of your week.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.